Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and ladies and gentlemen, we are about a week out from the NFL draft. And so, with that being said, it is time for my mock draft. But before we jump into anything, there is a news story that I would like to touch on that kind of does piggyback off of what we were talking about during last episode. So let's jump into that first. But before we do anything, if y'all could leave a like and subscribe down below, that would be much appreciated. I've seen last episode blew up. We had a lot of views in less than 24 hours, plus a couple of subscribers. So thank y'all for joining along on this adventure that we're having. And I do apologize for no episode this past Saturday. Obviously, you're having it today, Wednesday, the 15th. Some stuff came up, and I was unfortunately pressed for time, so I did not have enough time to get y'all the well-deserved episode, at least a mock draft episode that y'all were looking forward to. But that also gave me more time to let this drama kind of play out. And what drama am I kind of talking about? Well, remember last episode how I went off on the NFL media and mainly the sports media as a whole, like places like Fox Sports and ESPN? Well, funny enough, I question their journalistic integrity, and it comes out that one of the top NFL journalists for The Athletic, which is the sports section of the New York Times, allegedly was seeing Mike Vrabel, with both of them being married. Let me actually do some journalistic investigation, what I've piled up for y'all over the past maybe 2 weeks, and let me show you how deep this really goes. Before we get to anything of Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel in Arizona, let's go over a short history of Dianna Russini and some allegations she's had against her. So in 2015, shortly after Dianna Russini joined ESPN, Jessica McClown, the wife of Redskins GM Scott McClown, publicly accused Russini of having an inappropriate relationship with her husband. The tweets were vulgar and specific. At the time, ESPN defended Russini and called her an excellent reporter who should never have to be subjected to such vulgar comments. McClown later publicly apologized and called her comments unfounded and inappropriate. So, there is a history of Dianna Russini that has possibly had inappropriate relationships with members of NFL staff to possibly, allegedly, get scoops or insider information for her articles. So let's jump to present day. So back to, this all kicked off on Thursday, March 26th. That's when Mike Vrabel may have flown into Phoenix the night before the Arizona State University Pro Day. The 27th, during the morning, Vrabel worked at the Arizona State University Pro Day. He was there alongside head coaches like John Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski, and executives from 31 NFL franchises. The Pro Day was stacked, and there are pictures of him being at the Pro Day. So that's out there. That's in Tempe, Arizona. That same Friday afternoon, Vrabel may have driven 2 hours north to Sedona and checked into the Ambient. The Ambient is an all-adults-only boutique resort where private bungalows run up to $2,100 a night. The rooftops are only accessible from the bungalows themselves, which is where Vrabel and Russini were seen interlocking fingers during the sunset. Before Saturday morning, Diana Russini may have already been at the ambient. Her personal camp says that she was on a hiking trip with two female friends. So that's up to debate. Obviously, she was pictured with Mike Vrabel in Sedona at the ambient at this point. So there is a chance that they're just trying to save face. Saturday, March 28th at 10:30 a.m., Vrabel and Russini had breakfast on the ambient patio. Late morning, Vrabel and Russini spent roughly 90 minutes at the pool together, which obviously was also photographed. The afternoon, Vrabel and Russini sat together in the hot tub for about an hour. During sunset, Vrabel and Russini were photographed hugging and holding hands on the private rooftop of one of the bungalows. A witness briefly saw them dance. 3 separate eyewitnesses told Page 6, which is where all this kind of blew up from, they only ever saw the 2 people without acquaintances, which the argument from both parties was that both the Vrabel and Russini parties was that there were 6 other people. So originally they denied it was them. Then they walked it back and said there were 6 other people. And then eyewitnesses said there was nobody else besides the 2. So keep that in mind. Sometime late, on Sunday, March 29th, Vrabel and Russini may have checked out of the ambient and driven to Phoenix for the 2026 NFL Annual League meeting in the Arizona Biltmore. Vrabel was there as the Patriots head coach. Russini was there covering the meetings with The Athletic. Sunday, that same day, Vrabel and Russini may have checked into the Arizona Biltmore and or other surrounding hotels ahead of league meetings. They were there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday, Vrabel definitely had his hands full with some other stuff happening in the Patriots organization. And so, yeah, the pictures come out April 7th. So that's roughly the timeline. So a week after most of this stuff kind of wraps up and both return home from their time in Arizona, just in general, let's say. The pictures get released online from a private detective who I'm assuming was hired by Russini's husband, based off of how there's more than just that picture. There's pictures of them at the combine, getting drinks together, and so on and so forth. If you want to find it, you can find all kind of pictures online. Trust me. Where this grows interesting to me is that Diana Russini has been at the head of the crusade of getting A.J. Brown traded to the Patriots, which I've told you is not happening. It will not happen, and it is not happening. And Howie Roseman just yesterday shut down all the rumors saying that he was an Eagle. But that's besides the point. It is not happening. It will not happen. And Diana Russini, obviously being at the head of this, if she's allegedly sleeping with Mike Vrabel or has an inappropriate relationship with Mike Vrabel, and Vrabel is feeding her misinformation to drop the asking price for A.J. Brown, that's clearly tampering. And so that's where my entire gripe comes from. Is obviously I don't believe that a married woman and a married man should be staying together, only together, at a adults-only resort and holding hands romantically at the very least. But my ultimate gripe is now she has ultimately, essentially, so she has denied anything. Yesterday, April 14th, she released her letter of resignation from The Athletic because the internet, not that it bullied her, but it did not let her get a breather here. They constantly pile drived her with crap. So she submitted her letter of resignation to The Athletic. The Athletic was already putting in a probe into the situation, so I think this was just her trying to get ahead of this. And so to me, it's weird because you didn't see a lot of NFL insiders try to stick up for her. Except for, weirdly, the Philly media, 94.1 WIP and 97.5. Weirdly enough, both of them tried to stick up for her. And that kind of shows you how bad our media is in the city. But that's besides the point. So, Russini, I believe, is guilty of something. Allegedly, all this stuff happened. How do I feel? She's probably guilty of having some form of inappropriate relations with Mike Vrabel. And then Vrabel used that to drop the asking price of A.J. Brown, with insider saying this, insider saying that. That's why Russini was at the head of this crusade. God only knows what other crusades she was at the head of to screw over teams. But obviously Russini should leave the NFL and possibly sports media sphere for a long time. She's going to have to recover from this. And to me, that letter of resignation is a sign of wrongdoing and receding. Mike Vrabel, I believe the NFL might be doing their own quiet probe into Mike Vrabel and what's going on there. Obviously, both of them, unfortunately, have children and a marriage. Both of them have marriages, so that's, from the human aspect of it, it's really unfortunate. But from the NFL standpoint, and especially as an Eagles fan, I'm not surprised. This is going on more than people think in the journalism sphere, and that's coming from me just looking over stuff after 2 semesters of taking journalism courses and sports journalism, sports media courses, so I understand how dirty this business kind of is. And we're only really scratching the surface here with Russini. Russini's one of the most blatant with it. Obviously getting caught back in 2015, and the wife of the Redskins general manager probably getting a lot of pressure to rescind her comments. To me, it kind of just proves that Dianna Russini and any claims on A.J. Brown has been misinformation. So, ladies and gentlemen, as an Eagles fan, I can kind of rest easy now knowing that we don't have somebody like Dianna Russini constantly pumping the NFL media market full of Eagles disinformation. Also, I wanted to say, the day after this all came out, and for a couple of days following, there's no reports on the Eagles, whether it was Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown. Let's put that out there. Just a thought. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that. Maybe if you all kind of like that, maybe I could do more, use some more journalistic approaches in the podcast, especially when I'm chasing stories. Please let me know down in the comments below. Obviously, we're going to be moving on to the NFL mock draft that I have. Next week is the NFL draft. And so I will be doing picks 1 through 32. Let's just jump right into it, and I'll explain my picks for the teams as we go here. Okay, and picking number 1 overall in this year's NFL draft is the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are they're not interesting. Here's why. They're going to take Fernando Mendoza first overall. Mendoza is probably the most NFL-ready player in this draft, although Las Vegas kind of already signed Kirk Cousins to a big long-term deal. I think they want to have Mendoza sit behind a veteran quarterback like Tom Brady likes to do, and ultimately how Tom Brady wants his quarterbacks that he drafts to do, and ultimately just take the franchise guy, number 1 overall. I've been saying this all offseason. Fernando Mendoza is going to be a Raider. Next up, we have the New York Jets, and I think they're going to take the best defensive player on the board, that being linebacker Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese had an amazing defensive season, senior season, with Ohio State, and ultimately I think that he really didn't get talked about enough through this entire process because he's one of those top 3 guys that is either going to go 2 or 3 behind Mendoza. I just think the Jets take him off the board. They need a lot of help on defense, especially getting rid of a lot of key franchise pieces. So bringing in a guy like Arvil Reese to kind of come off the edge and get after the quarterback, apply a little bit of pressure, I feel like is a good first step for the Jets in this draft. Really building up this defense, and then hopefully having Geno Smith elevate the offense. They won't have to focus on offense as early in this draft. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals, they're in a tricky situation. Some people have them taking quarterback at number 3. I think that's a little bit high. I think there's a possibility that they could trade back in to the first round later to get a quarterback like Ty Simpson. But I believe that the Cardinals need a lot of help. And one position that they continue to struggle with is offensive line, in my opinion. I think that they need a lot of help with offensive line. And so they, in my mock draft, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Francis, I'm going to butcher this name, Mauigoa, with the 3rd overall pick. The offensive tackle out of Miami. He's the best offensive tackle in this draft. Only ahead of, where is he at? Only ahead of Spencer Fano. There are quite a few good offensive tackles, but to me, Francis Mauigoa is just at the top of the tier. Hopefully, they can bring in somebody to keep. Damn it, we just talked about him last week or 2 weeks ago. Jacoby Brissett upright, and I think there is a possibility that maybe they could take a wide receiver as here as well to give their new head coach a new weapon to play around with and a running mate alongside Marvin Harrison. But right now I'm going to have them take offensive tackle with the number 3 overall pick. Next up, it is the Tennessee Titans, and then the Titans, to me, can either go one of 2 ways. They could go edge, David Bailey out of Texas Tech, or linebacker Sonny Styles. Now, I think Styles is a little bit more of one of those combine guys where they look better at the combine than their film actually does. So I'm going to have the Titans take edge David Bailey at pick number 4. Bailey was quite productive in his senior season with Texas Tech. I think that he could come in and under Robert Saleh become an automatic threat in that kind of system. And so to me, I think it's kind of a no-brainer that the Titans will take a guy like David Bailey, a guy that's proven to elevate defenses on the field, rather than a guy like Sonny Styles, who is a raw, amazing prospect, but needs to be refined in the right system. Next up is pick number 5. We have the New York Giants. Now the Giants could go a couple different ways. They could get a running mate alongside Malik Neighbors with a guy like Carnell Tate after losing a couple guys like Flott, and there's one other guy that I'm forgetting. They could go defense, and after Dexter Lawrence has asked for a trade, they could ultimately get a guy like Sonny Styles to come in, or a guy like Ruben Bain, who has found himself in a little bit of legal trouble, but that hasn't really stopped top-tier prospects in the past. To me, though, I think they're going to go with the raw talent, Sonny Styles, a guy that kind of fits Hardball's system on defense, and a guy that could become a dynamic playmaker if mentored right. I think Hardball's system up in New York will probably do that, and I feel like Styles could become an amazing defensive running mate alongside what's-her-face that they took last draft. Oh, crap. Abdul Carter, that's it. I think he could be an amazing running mate alongside Abdul Carter. But time will only tell at that point. He certainly needs a lot of work, and I think this is the right situation for him. I just hope that the Giants don't really waste the possible potential with this athletic linebacker. Next up is Cleveland. And Cleveland, to me, outside of the Raiders, are one of the more clear-cut, like, this is where this guy is going in this draft. It's Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate is going to the Cleveland Browns at number 6. Tate was the best wide receiver in college football last season, only behind his own running mate, Jeremiah Smith. And to me, Tate is a dynamic guy. He can come in, help elevate whatever quarterback is playing there at in Cleveland, whether it's Deshaun Watson, whether it's Shador Sanders, or maybe even Dylan Gabriel. I feel like a guy like Tate can come in, elevate the play, and fit into a style that Todd Monken likes to run. And so a dynamic playmaker would probably be the best move for Cleveland, although there's probably a couple spots like offensive line that they could go. I think that Carnell Tate is a solid lock to go to Cleveland at pick number 6. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders have quite a few needs that they could satisfy. Their defense is getting old, and a guy like Ruben Bain is sitting there out of Miami. Jeremiah Love is sitting there. They could use another offensive threat. Caleb Downs is still there. They could use a safety. I think that they personally go Ruben Bain. I think Ruben Bain, at that point, although he has some questionable legal issues that he's currently dealing with, he's the best defensive player sitting there at that point. Bain, I know there's worry about how short his arms are. I don't really think that that's going to play a factor. I mean, we saw how well Will Campbell did, and they said the same thing about him. I think Bain could come in, help rejuvenate this defense a little bit for Washington, help add some depth to that defensive line, and ultimately become a staple for this Commanders defense. Whether Bain can solve out his legal issues, that's a different story, but to me, I just think that Ruben Bain is sitting there. He's the best defensive player, maybe outside of Caleb Downs at that point. So I think it's going to be a safe pick for the Commanders to take Ruben Bain at number 7. All right, next up, we have the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints are an interesting situation. To me, if I was the Saints, I'm going to go after offensive line, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they want to bring in a dynamic playmaker to play alongside Chris Olave, a guy to help elevate Tyler Shuck. So I think they take a shocking pick here. That's going to be Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State, at pick number 8. Jordan Tyson has been jumping up draft boards recently because of his outstanding play at his pro day, at the combine. He's an overall physical specimen. He's played pretty well on the field as well compared to some other guys that I've kind of said they're good at combines and pro days, not as good on the field. Jordan Tyson, to me, is a great pick here at number 8 for the Saints. They like to have a wide receiver heavy offense, and so a guy like Jordan Tyson, a bigger body receiver, coming in alongside a Chris Olave, who's more of a route runner, would ultimately, I think, work best for Tyler Shuck and Kellen Moore in this offensive system. So, to me, I have the New Orleans Saints upsetting everybody and taking Jordan Tyson at number 8. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And to me, the Chiefs traded away a lot of corners this past offseason, so they're going to need to take one here in the first round. I have them taking Mansour Delane out of LSU at pick number 9. Obviously, like I just said, they traded away 2 of their best corners, and now they're really thin at the position. Delane is the top corner in this entire draft. And I do think that it's either him or McCoy. Him or Jerron McCoy that are kind of a solid lock to go to Kansas City at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City takes McCoy over Delane. I think it's probably a personal preference. I know McCoy is more of a man man corner, while Delane's more of a zone. So it really depends on what Steve Spagnuolo prefers out of his guys. So, but right now I'm just going to have the Chiefs take the highest cornerback off the board, that being Mansour Delane out of LSU at pick number 9. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals, to me, are going to take Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is a dynamic safety here. I do think that it's going to be him or Jeremiah Love that goes to the Bengals at pick number 10. Downs has fallen down people's mock drafts as of recently, so I feel like this is a safe spot for the Bengals to take a guy who is arguably a top 5 prospect in this entire draft, who has just fallen down people's draft boards, and take the steal of a draft and help start to build up this secondary once again to hopefully take some pressure off the offense. So I have Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State, going to the Cincinnati Bengals at pick number 10. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins could seriously trade away this pick if they get a good offer. I could see them doing that with maybe Dexter Lawrence. They bring in a guy like Dexter Lawrence down to Miami. But for right now, I think they take the second best offensive tackle in the draft at pick number 11, that being Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. Fano had an amazing senior season as a Dolphin, and so now as a Ute, and so bringing that kind of prestige to Miami would be good. Hopefully, blocking the blind side of Malik Willis, their new top-paid quarterback. Although Miami could go with an offensive weapon like a Makai Lemon or a Kenyon Sadiq, I do think that there's a solid chance that they just go safe, take offensive line, and start to build up the trenches around their quarterback. So, at pick number 11, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Spencer Fano. At number 12, the Dallas Cowboys are such an interesting situation. They have a lot of different positions of need. Their offensive line is one of the weakest in the NFL. So I think we have 2 offensive tackles taken back-to-back, with the second one being Monroe Freeling, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. Freeling is a solid guy. He is one of the top 3, but he's 3. You can make the argument between Mayago and Fano, but Freeling has to be 3. If the Dallas Cowboys reach on anybody else, I think it could be a guy like Caden Proctor, offensive tackle out of Alabama, or maybe a guy like Caleb Lamu. It really just depends on what they see and whether they think that the mechanics are there for a starting offensive tackle in this league. Dallas has kind of missed on a couple first rounds this past couple of off seasons, and so they're going to need to strike here, whether it's with Monroe Freeling or whether it's with a different guy, maybe a guy like Gerard McCoy. I could see them taking maybe a guy like Avion Terrell they could take. But the safe choice for me for Dallas is start to build up the trenches once again to keep Dak Prescott upright during the season. And so Monroe Freeling is the best choice for them. Alright, next up is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams here could go a couple different ways, but to me, I think that they're going to bring in a guy like... so they traded for a lot of corners. So, to me, corner is kind of off the board for the Rams at this point. I think they bring in a guy like Makai Lemon. There's a lot of questions right now with the Rams and their wide receiver core. Puka Nacua checked into rehab. Devontae Adams is on the older side. And so a young guy like Makai Lemon, at worst, he becomes a solid wide receiver 3 this season. If not, at best, he proves that he can be a running mate or possibly surpass Puka. as wide receiver for the Rams. But right now, I feel like a safe pick for the Rams would be Mekhi Lemon, a guy that can come in and take over Davante Adams' spot when the time comes and learn behind Puka and Davante Adams. Just don't let Lemon hang out with Puka Nacua outside of the team facility. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens, to me, I think they're going to take defensive line. They got banged up a lot during the defensive line. And to me, I think they're going to take the best guy on the board, that being Kendrick Folk, edge out of Auburn. I think Folk had an amazing year at Auburn. Was it as great as people would have hoped? No. But he's still up here getting picked in the top 14, so he produced a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and he did a lot of containing the run as well. So I feel like he's a pretty flexible flexible edge rusher when it comes to that kind of situation. To me, I think Baltimore gets a really solid pickup here, especially with a new defensive-minded head coach and Jesse Minter, bring in a guy like Kendrick Folk to help start to produce. And this Ravens defensive line was banged up across the board last season. So with the 14th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens take Kendrick Folk, edge out of Auburn. Next up is going to be Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa Bay could go a couple different ways. But to me, I think they take the best player on the board. I know they just paid what's-his-face the other day. Or, not the other day, last year. I don't know why I even said the other day. They paid Bucky Irving. But to me, I think they just take the best player on the board, and it's a Jeremiah Love. Love fell out of the top 10 for me because he's more of a luxury that a lot of these top 10 teams really can't afford. The only one that could possibly do that is the Bengals at pick number 10, but then Caleb Downs falls, who could go to Miami. He could easily go to Miami, but to me, I think Jeremiah Love has a strong possibility of getting passed over since he's a running back in the first round. And to me, Tampa Bay needs a dynamic playmaker on offense, whether it's in the backfield or whether it's lined up on the hashes that can go out there and generate some offense. Building up a young core, Emeka Mbuka, now Jeremiah Love, maybe drafting another wide receiver later in this draft. Starting to build up a young core around Baker Mayfield, allowing him to kind of just designate which playmaker he kind of wants to go to in a situation. And so to me, Jeremiah Love is the safe pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at pick number 15. At pick number 16, we have the New York Jets once again. The Jets traded away their franchise corner. And to me, that kind of spells disaster for the Jets. And so they're going to need to pick up a new top-tier corner. And so to me, I think they take the best corner on the board, that being cornerback out of Tennessee, Gerard McCoy. McCoy is arguably the best corner in the entire draft. I only have Delane going a little bit earlier due to the fact that the Chiefs kind of prefer his play style over McCoy. McCoy is a guy that's scrappy. He'll go out there and win a rep. But ultimately, I would like to see how he's able to take his play style of this tight, scrappy man coverage and equate it over to the NFL. Him under Aaron Glenn should be fun to watch. And to me, the Jets take two defensive players to continue to build up around, one on the defensive line, one in the secondary. And so to me, the Jets continue to build up this defense under defensive-minded head coach Aaron Glenn. It would just be interesting to see whether McCoy is able to translate his game over. And so that's why he's a little bit further down than what most people would probably have them in their mock drafts. At number 17, we have the Detroit Lions picking. And the Lions need offensive tackle, and bad. So I'm going to have them take the top offensive tackle, left on the board right now. That being offensive tackle out of Alabama, Caden Proctor. They had a couple people retire on the offensive line. I had them either going with that or Elo Vega Ione out of Penn State. Either one of those two guys I think could fit Detroit's system and Detroit's style with how physical they are. But to me, Detroit needs offensive tackle more than they need interior offensive line. They could probably pick that up later in the draft in the 3rd or 4th round. But to me, I think Detroit brings in a guy like Caden Proctor to be a big, physical offensive tackle to pair alongside Penei Sewell on the opposite side of the line and help rebuild this offensive line, which used to be one of the best a couple of years ago, maybe like 2 years ago. And so I would like to see them go offensive or defensive line here in the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Vikings are an interesting situation. I think they're going to go safety, and there's two guys that they could go. Now, I know they've been more rumored towards Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. And I think they're going to take a guy like Dylan Thieneman at pick number 18. Thieneman kind of matches the style that their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, likes to run more. And he's just an overall physical safety. I think the Vikings will ultimately either go with him or Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I don't think they could really go wrong with either. Just as of right now, I have Dylan Thieneman as the higher-ranked safety. And so I think that bringing in a guy like Dylan Thieneman could ultimately help improve this defense, at least the secondary, shut down offenses just a little bit more. Next up is the Carolina Panthers at pick number 19. And the Panthers have a lot that they need to kind of shore up here. But to me, the Panthers kind of need a solid offensive weapon. And with that being said, I think that they take Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. So 2 Oregon Ducks back-to-back here. Sadiq has been one of the best offensive weapons, at least intelligence-wise, throughout this entire draft process for many teams. And so to me, bring in a tight end to run alongside, I'm forgetting his name, tight end down in Carolina, I'm forgetting his name, but run alongside whatever his face is, and give Bryce Young another weapon down in Carolina. I think this is a safe bet for the Panthers here. You can't really go wrong with Sadiq. He's a dynamic playmaker, and he's quite intelligent. So, with the number 19 overall pick, I have the Panthers taking tight end out of Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq. At number 20, the Dallas Cowboys have another pick here. And to me, I think they go with best defensive player on the board. They need a lot of help in the secondary, and so I think they take cornerback out of Clemson, Avion Terrell. Terrell had an amazing senior season at Clemson. Although Clemson had quite a down season, quite a few of their guys had an amazing personal season, at least statistically and film-wise, for the NFL Draft. The first being Avion Terrell. And Dallas brings in a guy that can help shore up their secondary, especially with the departure of Trevion Diggs this past season. And so they start to build up their secondary once again with a new franchise guy, Terrell. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to me, the Steelers could go one of two ways. They could go quarterback with Ty Simpson, depending on whether Aaron Rodgers returns. Or they could go offensive tackle. So I'm having them taking the other Utah Ute offensive tackle, Caleb Lamu, who can come in and help kind of buff up this offensive line once again, which has lost a couple pieces during the free agency period. To me, Lamu has a solid chance of being an underrated offensive tackle in this draft, although I believe he's the fourth that I've said has been already taken. Yeah, he is the fourth. Or no, he might be the fifth. Excuse me, he's the fifth. Sorry. Although it's the fifth offensive tackle taken, I believe Lamu still has a solid chance of being a decent starter in the NFL based off of the kind of film that he was able to put on tape in Utah. And so the Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I think they take offensive line to protect the quarterback. And if not, they might have to take Ty Simpson, their quarterback of the future. But for argument's sake, they take Caleb Lamu with pick number 21, offensive tackle out of Utah. Next up, we have the Chargers, and to me, the Chargers need offensive line, and they're going to take another. Actually, yeah, they're going to take Ione or. Damn, they're going to take Ione out of Penn State here. I made a mistake. I clicked the wrong guy here. So when we review it next week, I'll just write in that I took Ione with pick number 22. They need serious help on the offensive line. Justin Herbert was one of the most pressured quarterbacks last year, and it just did not allow him to kind of do a great quarterback year last year. And so to me, Ione, safe bet, knowing that they can kind of secure this interior of the offensive line and then continue to maybe draft one or two other offensive linemen to compete for the starting jobs late in the draft. So I have Ione going to the Los Angeles Chargers with pick number 22. Next up, we got your Philadelphia Eagles, and how do I think they're going to go? Well, there's one choice for me, and it's my favorite guy in this entire draft for the Eagles, that being Emmanuel McNeill-Warren, safety out of Toledo. Safety, to me, is the biggest need that Philadelphia has, and so a guy like McNeill-Warren can fall to Philadelphia at pick number 23, it would be a godsend. McNeill-Warren could go as early as the Vikings pick at number 18. So if they're able to snag a guy like McNeill-Warren this far down, I would be quite surprised, and I'd be quite happy. I could see this being another pick similar to the Quinyon Mitchell pick, where a lot of people question it. He's a talented guy, but he hasn't seen a lot of success with his program. Can he do it? Obviously, McNeill-Warren has been in touch with Quinyon Mitchell through this entire process. So I would quite enjoy to see another Toledo Rockets guy come in and join this crew of Philadelphia secondary pieces. So with the number 23 overall pick in this NFL draft, I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Emmanuel McNeill-Warren, safety out of Toledo. If that happens, I'd be quite a happy Eagles fan at this point. And with the 24th overall pick, the Cleveland Browns are going to be... They selected a offensive player. I think they're going to be looking for a defensive player to kind of run alongside Myles Garrett and the other first-round pick from last year, who I'm blanking on the name. He's a defensive tackle. Wears 55, but I forget. So I'm going to have them take the top defensive player on the board, that being Akeem Mesidor, edge out of Miami. Miami saw multiple edge rushers this past season be quite productive, and Mesidor was at the top of them alongside of Bain. And so to me, Mesidor is going to be a safe pick at number 4 for Cleveland to kind of boost up this defensive line and have NFL offensives worry about somebody other than Myles Garrett. Moving on to pick number 25, we have the Chicago Bears. And the Bears would probably take McNeill-Warren if he was still there, but he's not. And so to me, the Bears kind of need defensive line, so I think they take the best defensive tackle or defensive lineman on the board. That being Clemson defensive lineman Peter Woods. I think they just take the best defensive tackle on the board here and kind of move forward. Try to plan out their draft more to draft some depth. They need safety. I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Thieneman or Emmanuel McNeil Warren fall this far that they take them. But to me, if things shake out the way that I think they do, which they never do, but if they do, then I think that the Bears will take Peter Woods here at pick number 25. That or a guy like TJ Parker. Both Clemson guys, by the way. Go Tigers. Anyway, up next for the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to have them take wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. out of the University of Indiana, that being. Was the old running mate alongside Fernando Mendoza. I think Omar Cooper Jr. has a solid chance of being a good wide receiver. My only problem with Buffalo is this is a total Buffalo move to draft another wide receiver and not develop any of the guys that they already have that are on the younger side. Keon Coleman is kind of a flop, and to me, this upcoming year is going to be make or break for his career, especially in Buffalo. So a guy like Omar Cooper Jr., you hope that they find a way to develop him. You hope that he becomes a dynamic playmaker under the guise of Joe Brady and Josh Allen. But we're going to have to wait and see whether his game in college can translate over into the pros. But I feel like it's still a safe pick for Omar Cooper Jr. to go 26 overall to the Buffalo Bills. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers need wide receiver. I'm sorry. It could either be Kevin oh boy, that's going to be a rough one. Concepcion. Is it Concepcion? Sure, either Kevin Concepcion or Denzel Boston could either go here at pick number 27 to the 49ers. I'm going to have them take the top guy on the board, and that being Kevin Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. He was quite a dynamic playmaker, although the offense did fall flat later in the season. It was more the play of the quarterback and less the play of the wide receivers. And so to me, a guy like Kevin Concepcion has a solid chance of coming into a very weak wide receiver room that only has Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall, and come in and become a household name possibly, maybe even a running mate alongside of Mike Evans in his final couple of years in the NFL. So, with the number 27th overall pick, I have the 49ers bringing in Mike Evans' replacement with Kevin Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Next up, we got the Houston Texans at pick number 28. And the Texans need a lot of help. And to me, it kind of starts with offensive line. And to me, I think they take the best offensive tackle to kind of bring in and replace Laremy Tunsil, that being Miller out of Clemson. Miller was efficient. He's one of the weaker offensive tackles, especially in the first round wise, but he's still on the board. He's still a solid guy. And to me, I think the Houston Texans will take offensive tackle here to kind of start to beef up this. I'm surprised that they're not the worst offensive line, but they have the possibility to be the worst offensive line this upcoming season, so might as well start a little bit early and draft some beef up front to give CJ Stroud more time in the pocket. So with the 28th overall pick, the Houston Texans select Miller, offensive tackle out of Clemson. I could really see Kansas City trading away this pick at pick number 29. But let's say that they don't, because I don't really have many people trading away picks and such. But if they don't, I think they take the best defensive player on the board, that being TJ Parker. TJ Parker is an edge rusher out of Clemson, a solid playmaker for this Clemson defense. Ultimately, I would have liked to see more production out of him last year, but he did just enough to kind of be one of the top 30 prospects. He's outdone himself at his at the Clemson Pro Day. He was okay at the NFL Combine, so we're gonna have to wait and see what he looks like on the field with Kansas City. And again, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade away this pick. But to me, the Chiefs are going to take the best defensive player on the board, that being Parker, edge out of Clemson. So I will say that I do think Miami will trade out of pick number 30. Where are they at? And who do I have them picking with? Oh, come on, go through. Okay, so I have them trading with the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 30. The Cardinals come back up into the draft, or into the first round, excuse me. I don't know what they trade away. I'm not going to predict that. But they jump back in and take their quarterback of the future, Ty Simpson, at pick number 30. Simpson, you've had people clamor and say you might go number 3 overall. I don't think so. There are quite a lot better prospects than him in this draft. Simpson, solid quarterback guy. He's not Fernando Mendoza, but he's serviceable. I do think that there's a possibility that he could eventually take over for Jacoby Brissett, whether it's this year or the next. But to me, if a guy like Ty Simpson is still sitting there late in round 1, like pick number 29 or pick number 30, I think a team jumps up into that position to take the Alabama quarterback. So with the number 30 overall pick, I have the Arizona Cardinals trading back up with the Miami Dolphins, which was originally from the Denver Broncos, for Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama. Next up, we have New England is on the board, and I'm going to have them take a defensive piece that I think that they could turn into a good stud, that being Cassius Howell, edge out of Texas A&M. Howell is a really serviceable guy. He's a leader in the locker room, and so bringing a guy like this, like Howell, to this Patriots team, who's kind of lost right now in a lot of turmoil, even after just being in the Super Bowl, I think that he could kind of improve this defensive line a bit. But to me, I think the Patriots should either go offensive line or go defensive line. So I feel like Cassius Howell, based off of how he's performed at different pro days and combines, I think he's a solid prospect for the Patriots to take at pick number 31. And lastly, for this first round mock draft, we have the Seattle Seahawks selecting a corner out of the University of Tennessee, that being Colton Hood. Colton Hood is ultimately, I think... Come on, get off my screen. Come on, get off my screen. Get off my screen. Never mind. Hood is one of been... Hood has fallen down draft boards over the past couple of weeks, and so to me, I think that he might fall into the late 20s, early 30s. Could be a second round pick kind of guy, early second round pick. But if Hood is still there, I think it's a smart idea for a team that just lost Tariq Woolen to free agency. I think they take a guy like Colton Hood and start to build him up to be the next Tariq Woolen. And so, to me, the Seattle Seahawks, reigning Super Bowl champions, bring in a guy like Colton Hood for this dark side defense, or whatever they call themselves now. All right, so that's it for this episode of the NFL podcast. I want to congratulate the astronaut I forget her name. I had this pulled up not too long ago. Give me one sec here. I have it right here. One of the astronauts on the Artemis 2 is a heavy Eagles fan. She was watching Eagles games and Phillies games up in space, brought Eagles confetti up into space, which I have my own bag sitting right next to where I record. So, to me, I think I just want to say congratulations to her on having a trip around the moon. And I also want to congratulate the Flyers for making it into the NHL playoffs. We're all rooting for you guys. I hope you guys go far. It's finally nice to see a Flyers team make it back to the playoffs. When I started watching hockey, it was the last year that the Flyers made the playoffs, so it's nice to see them back. So, yeah, without me blabbering on any much more, I want to thank you all for all the support that you guys did on the last episode. I hope you guys find this episode as enticing. I will see you guys after the draft. And then we will talk about, we're going to compare my mock draft to what actually happened. And just some of the overall drama that probably is going to unfold over the course of the 3 days that it takes to get through the NFL draft. So, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And one last thing, remember, go Birds.